Everyone, and welcome to Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. Now, it's been a difficult few weeks for Liverpool, four back-to-back defeats in all competitions. Currently, the formation, the setup, the system isn't working for Liverpool. So, during the show, I'm going to try and provide some solutions that maybe Arne Slot could consider and try to rejuvenate the squad going forward because, quite frankly, something needs to change and it has to happen quickly. So let's go through a few formations that I have in mind and let me know in the comments what you think of these formations and let me know what is your favorite formation or the formation that you feel like Liverpool should look into in the coming weeks. So the first one is the current setup, for obvious speaking, and slightly different to the lineup that was presented against Manchester United. Uh, the most noticeable will be that there's no McAllister. For me, he's been in very poor form and doesn't look like he's fully fit for whatever reason. Maybe he's carrying an injury that is not publicly known right now. But for me, he just doesn't seem like he's in any sort of rhythm with the team or the squad. So therefore, a tough decision need to be made from Arne Slot, and that is to drop him. I really think him out of the team right now is probably best because with him in our current midfield, players or shall I say our opponents are walking past us in that midfield like he's non-existent. So that's a concern for me going forward. Now, in terms of the current setup, we've got a double pivot. I've been, vouching for this for a number of weeks. I want to see a Szoboszlai and Gravenberch double pivot. Yes, it might not be the most sort of defensively sound duo or defensively sound midfield unit, but I do believe that they have the right combination to play alongside each other. With Gravenberch, the more defensive-minded midfielder, and Szoboszlai, super energetic, box to box. I feel like it can work as a collective. So I feel like this is something that needs to be presented because it hasn't been a duo that we've seen so much this season. And I know we saw it in preseason a couple of occasions and maybe once or twice during games, but it's not been a starting um, formation for our midfield. So for me, this is something that Arsenal should look at instantly without tweaking the squad too much. In terms of my fullback position, I've gone with Frimpong on the right. I think he's head and shoulders above Conor Bradley, who for me has been ineffective so far this season. Kirkis still has a bit to prove, but I do feel like he has the energy and the right sort of approach to have an impact in this team. And as you can see in the front four, you've got Salah on the right, Gakpo on the left, Verts in that number 10 role, and you've got Isak. So the reason why I'm presenting the current formation because I don't quite feel like we're playing to this sort of shape anymore. It is tweaked a little bit. Um, so let me just bring back McAllister actually and just explain in terms of why things aren't working in the middle of our park. That's mainly because Gravenberch's been given a more of a free role so far this season. So Berts, has been occupying this sort of position, and Gravenberch's actually been, a bit more on that right side than normal. And this is what's happening. You've got Gravenberch in that box to box role. So he ends up, finding himself in his pocket. And then what happens is McAllister is the one that's protecting the back line. And whatever the case is right now, he's just not with it. He's not tracking back. He's not, protecting the back line. He's getting pushed around like, he's a little kid in a sort of big boy playground, something of that nature. And it's quite frightening because that's not the McAllister that we've seen over the years. He has he might not be the biggest, but he has shown defensive capabilities. He's shown aggression and tenacity in his play. We've not seen any of that so far this season. So for me, this tweak that Arne Slot has presented, I don't like it because he's overthought the formation or the tactic, in my opinion. He's trying to have a more free flowing midfield where, in one moment it'll be Groundberg and then McAllister in that position, just so there adds a bit of unpredictability in the middle of our park. But I also feel like that's not giving us the assurance to the players around us. So go back to basics. Brownberg in that deeper role. and then have McAllister um, in this scenario in that more sort of box to box role. But for me, I would drop McAllister in the next 2, 3 games and start Szoboszlai there. And one thing regarding Szoboszlai, for me, he's been one of our sort of outstanding performers so far this season. But my problem with Arne Slot in terms of utilizing Szoboszlai is that he's playing 2, 3 positions every game. That's not acceptable. Give him some sort of stable position in the team, i.e., let him play in one role. Stop using him in makeshift positions because, quite frankly, that shows that we're lacking quality in other areas of the pitch. He's played quite a few games at right back, and to be fair, has done a really good job there. But that's not his position. It's just that due to his athleticism, he's able to play different roles. He's got a good, football IQ, so therefore he can play in different positions. But for me, I feel like the duo of Gravenberg and Szoboszlai could work, and it could also help in regards to unleashing flowing verts because you've got a player behind him in Szoboszlai who'll be energetic, who'll try and find the service or try and find the ball to Verts, and Verts can lay off that final pass to the likes of Gakpo, Salah, and Isak in front of him. So for me, this is the kind of combination that I want to see going forward. Now, in terms of our structures, I guess on paper it's regarded as a 4-2-3-1. Uh, maybe we just revert back to how we used to play under Jurgen Klopp, and that was in a 4-3-3 formation. But in regards to us playing this sort of formation, Verts hasn't really played as a left side number 8 in the Liverpool shirt, so there might be question marks in terms of his defensive capabilities playing in that role. But I feel like, it's something that could work. It's not too dissimilar to what I just presented previously, but in that role, he's more of a free-flowing midfielder rather than occupying that left-sided role, kind of like a half winger where, he's sometimes on the left on the byline, but can also cut in or in between. So pretty much the Coutinho role, whenever we play 4-3-3 with Coutinho, that was the role he occupied. So it was either that position or he used to play left wing. So, that could be the setup that we have going forward. And, with Salah on the right, Gakpo on the left, for me, those two need to do a lot better. Gakpo did improve against Manchester United. Salah just hasn't hit the ground running so far, unfortunately, this season. So definitely a few tweaks, but it's quite similar to our setup. So, the only sort of positive or the only main tweak in this formation is that Gravenberg is playing more defensively. I think that's number one. That needs to be done going forward, regardless of the setup. He needs to be our number 6. He needs to be our defensive minded midfielder going forward. It's all good and well him having this free role and getting a goal and a couple of assists here and there. That's not what he's brought in to be in the team. He's brought in to be the player that's the enforcer to, close up any that's coming through and protect the back line. That's his sole responsibility. So I feel like that's what we need to go and revert back to, those kind of old tactics that we had last season. So hopefully that is something that can be addressed in the coming games. And let's, try and think a little bit outside the box. Well, this won't seem too outside the box because, in English football, we've been accustomed to seeing, this level of play and formation in the past. I'm going for an old school 4-4-2 formation. Now, if you look at the personnel, the back line is pretty much the same. Salah on the right hand side, Verts on the left, so Bosla and Granberg in a double pivot, and then you've got Ekitike and Isak up top. So in this formation, I guess you are able to fit everyone in. Salah's there, Vert's there, Gravenberch is there, Szoboszlai, Ekitike gets to start alongside Isak. Of course, one player would have to drop, and that would be Gakpo. For me, that's not a big issue. I would rather have, the duo of Isak and Ekitike in this lineup. But I would question the personnel with this formation because if you have Verts on that left hand side, he's not going to, occupy that byline. That's not his strength. So he's going to cut inside. Kirk is on the overlap, so that could work. Um, and vice versa. It can also work where Salah goes inside and Frimpong goes on that right hand side. But my concern with this setup is that, due to Salah's age right now, Normally in the 4-4-2, the two wingers have to really work hard for the team, especially for the fullbacks behind them. So this is not something that I feel like will work with, Salah, not renowned for tracking back or busting a gut to help out his fullback. He's not at that stage of his career to be doing that kind of role. And Florian Wirtz, it's the same with him as well. So I feel like you are taking away their sort of high quality, which is being more attack minded. That sort of role would work back in the day when you had your old school wingers that would touch that byline, but also help out with the fullback. And that's why you probably had fullbacks back in the day that didn't really have a lot of attacking influence in the game because their role was to be defensive and the wingers in front of them, it was their job to help them out and go 2-on-1 onto the opponent's wingers in that situation. So for me, I'm not really in favor of this formation, but the formation that I've voiced quite a few times, more than a few, but I've voiced it for quite a few months now, especially as we were adding players to our squad in the summer. For me, is a 4-4-2 diamond. That's the setup that I think will work to the team, work to our capabilities, and I think it suits the personnel that we have in our squad. So if you look at the setup right now, the back line pretty much remains the same. For me, in every formation, those are the best players in those positions, in my opinion. And then in the midfield, you've got Gravenberch as your number six. So Bosley as your right side number eight, which is a role that he really showcased his talent, especially when he first joined Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp. McAllister on that left side, number eight role. Freudenberg as your number 10 and Isak and Ekitike up top. Now, the big surprise would be no Gakpo, but even further than that, no Mohamed Salah. So for me, I wouldn't say Salah's completely out of the picture, but in this scenario, we could probably try, to do something different. So the game we have with Frankfurt this week, maybe we test out a new formation like this and see how it works. So for me, you know, it's not always going to be Isak or Ekitike, but in this sort of formation and system, Salah could easily take up one of the roles up top. So for me, Salah ends up being more of a central striker going forward. I feel like that's where you're going to see the best out of him. Arguments to say maybe he can even play a number 10 role for Florian Wirtz. And in terms of the players around the squad, with Gakpo, some may say, he's not playing his natural position, but I think he can definitely occupy, one of the striker roles as well. I feel like it might give him more freedom to roam around the final third and actually, use his shooting ability to his advantage. Rio Gamoa, of course, it wouldn't suit him because he's an out and out winger. But right now, he's more of a young prospect than a first team player right now. So for me, we have to think about the short to medium term before we can start thinking about the long term vision of the club, which is probably, involving the likes of Rio and Trenion in the future. But right now, for me, this seems to be the best formation going forward. You've got Kerkez and Frimpong who can, bomb down that right hand side, and for Frimpong, of course, Kerkez for the left hand side. They're able to play, to their attacking instincts. And so if they've gone, far down, the likes of Sobozlai, they can cover for them if needed. And, if Gravenberch needs to team up, he can go alongside that. So he'll be, cleaning up shop in that role. So I feel like that, protects us in terms of our defensive unit. And then in terms of from an attacking point of view, he'll provide the creativity, the crosses, for two strikers. So I feel like that works. And, for me, having Ekitike alongside Isak, I feel like it's something that can work. It can really gel together. And it's a shame that, right now we're picking one of the two. I feel like you got to try and get both of them in the team because Ekitike doesn't deserve to be dropped. And Isak, of course, the price tag will be the big talking point, but I feel like he's slowly regaining his sharpness and match fitness. So it would be a shame to have him play a game and then drop him again. So too much sort of chopping and changing. I feel like these two players, could form a formidable partnership. So this would be my choice of formation uh, for the foreseeable future. Whether Arne Slot agrees or not, remains to be seen. Um, Now, in terms of thinking more outside of the box, what if we completely changed our shape? Completely rejig the norm. We could go for a back three formation. So a formation that I think could work is a 3-2-4-1 formation. So you're probably looking at the left side center, I'm thinking, what the hell's going on there? Right now, we don't have a lot of options, so that's why I've had to utilize the squad a bit more. But this could be a short-term solution for Robertson to play as a left-sided centre back. I don't want to use this as a comparison because they are not anywhere near our level. But the game against Manchester United, Luke Shaw played on that left-sided centre back role and did a decent job. So in this role, it might suit Robertson where he is occupying that left-hand side, but he's not having to bomb forward because he's got Kerkez in front of him. So I feel like the balance could be right in this formation. And Konate has played right-sided centre back, even though we don't play a back three. But when we've had Trent Alexander-Arnold in the team, he's had to play two roles, centre back, and it ends up being right back at times as well. So he's pretty much the perfect person for that right side role. And then, Virgil van Dijk, dominant leader in the middle of that defense. So for me, a decent balance there for the short term. I would hope, for the club to at least add one or two centre backs in January, and we can, add further quality to our team. And I'm sticking with the Sabozlai and Gravenberch combination because I think they give energy, athleticism as a duo. So I think that will work together. And then you've got Salah and Verts playing as two attacking midfielders, which I think will suit Salah. I feel like, him playing out wide in recent games, it just hasn't worked. He doesn't have that sort of dynamic speed to take on the fullback. And because of that, he's not effective in the game. Playing a more central role might give him a different sort of vision to have a different purpose altogether, which is to be more of a goal scorer and a creator, but in a more central role. So that could be something that suits him, and it requires him to run less in terms of tracking back for the team. And then you've got Kirkhead and Frimpong just focused on attacking that byline, whipping in crosses for Isak. Or the alternative would be to switch it a little bit and play a 3-4-1-2. So you have two strikers. So you've got the same back line there. You've got Granberg and Subaslan and double pivot. And then you've got Frimpong and Kirkes bombing down the flanks on this side and then on the other side as well. And then you've got Verts and you've got Ekitike and Isak. Or it could be Salah as well. So one of the, two out of the three will play together. If it's not Ekitike, it could be Salah and Isak, or it could be Ekitike and Salah as well. So I feel like this could be a formation for the long term, but obviously traditionally we don't really play with a back three, and back three does have a sort of a negative touch. But if you look at the personnel that we have, it might just work. It might just click. So drop a comment and let me know what you guys think. Are you impressed with any of the setups that are presented? Which one is your favorite, or which one do you feel like will work in terms of the current personnel that we have in the squad? My personal choice, I would go for the 4-4-2 diamond. I've been saying it for a few months' time. What should I say? I've been saying it for a few months. This is the route to go. I'm very surprised that he hasn't been tested. So I really hope, Arne Slot has a rethink and changes it up a little bit. We have a lot of coaches in the modern day that don't like to change their systems or their formations or their philosophies. I hope Arne Slot isn't that type of coach. Based on last season, he, didn't seem to have that sort of stubborn approach to games. He would always make tactical tweaks here and there, even during games. So I feel like, he needs to go back to the drawing board and find the right formula. Quite frankly, we don't have the same personnel. We've sold a lot of players. We've brought in new players, in my opinion, better players on paper, but we just haven't found the right system or the right formula to try and get everyone to gel together very quickly. So for me, this is the route to go. But feel free to let me know in the comments and let me know what you guys think. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. And that is it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.